Welcome to IT Reality. I'm your host, H-Town Vinny.
And I'm Richard Kenyon.
And I'm Nathan Bennett.
With over 4 decades of combined IT operational experience.
We may have an opinion.
Or not.
And now on with the show.
Let's go!
I don't think we've ever started a podcast recording with nipples before.
It's been a while.
Leave it to us to start out with a bang. It's been a while since we've sat here and shot the breeze, but I know that hail hit me here a few minutes ago and took out my wonderful satellite country internet. I don't know what the weather's like where y'all are, but
rain and rain and rain and rain and rain and rain and rain.
Nathan?
It's humid as hail. And when I say hail, I mean Houston. It's humid as Houston.
What are you doing in Houston?
I'm not doing anything in Houston, but you know what is in Houston?
What's that?
It's a beautiful day in Texas, ladies and gentlemen.
I had to get it in
everywhere.
there.
It's humid.
Well,
it's humid
yes,
everywhere. You know, we're all living like we're in Houston, but we're not in Houston. But it is. We all saw the eclipse, and
some of us did.
Some of us did. Yeah, I actually was in a meeting, and everybody in the meeting was like, "Go see the eclipse." I was like, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. And then, like, I went outside, and my whole family were like, "You missed it! It was amazing!" And I still don't quite understand it, but we were in the path of totality, which totally sounds like a video game
or a movie title.
Yeah, but I think that's what I want to say when I threaten people. You better watch yourself. You're in the path of totality.
It was very cloudy for us, which drove away a lot of our Western New York visitors, but it was dark.
And meanwhile, I was just sitting at my desk going, okay, it changed a little bit. So what? I guess I'm just not impressed with the heavens and the everything outside of this globe.
I was very happy.
Interesting to you.
I had colanders, I had pinhole cameras, I had binoculars, and we had all of the solar eclipse glasses. The whole family and our whole neighborhood were out, and we had bonfires, and I took the day from work. Oh, it was fantastic.
Well, I hope everyone that enjoys that kind of thing enjoyed it. And I don't know if I'm speaking to the void on this or if what I'm going to say is going to resonate with y'all. But lately I've been having to guide certain individuals, hint at certain individuals. Hey, maybe you should do a thing like, I don't know, pick up a book that is VMware related that, deep dives into insert technology before you start speaking about it. Maybe even go to one of those conferences and get the thing signed by the author and whatnot. That might motivate you to learn something. I think, Richard, you probably would recognize the book I was just holding up.
I was trying to reach for my book, but then remembered, where they are? They're at my office where I use them every single week for every single version on every single product, and they're all signed. So yeah, those are something you should really read if you are doing anything in the VMware ecosystem, because they're the second manual.
And it doesn't have to be knowledge that you're going to use today. You might use it a year from now. You might use it 3 years from now and not realize that you're going to need it. Specifically, the challenge that I've been facing, and this is probably going to cause Nathan to tune out a little bit, but NUMA is a thing. Configuring workloads to run optimally doesn't just happen accidentally. And when you configure something less than optimally, don't be surprised when it performs like crap. Just my 2 cents. There's example after example out there. If you need help understanding what it is that I might be talking about, yes, versions change things. So
look at him with all the slideshows. We have new software, by the way.
The book I was holding up a minute ago, 6.7. Yeah, it's dated, but the information is still valid. Here's an example, 7. Oh, and guess what? It changes a little bit more, but you're still using the same concepts. So please go read and learn. And I'll get off my soapbox now and let y'all discuss.
But why read about VMware, Vince? It's 10 times more expensive than it's ever been. Nobody wants to use it.
That
And
was
after-
yesterday, Nathan, not today for the blog post. That changed.
Oh, did it change? It's not
Yeah.
10 times more expensive? How many
No.
times more? Is it?
No,
it's
it's
only
not.
5 times more expensive?
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's what the blog post said. They said, oops, sorry about that. And then carried on with life as it is. So if you haven't, been out from under your rock since November of 2023, which is roughly the last time we recorded, Broadcom has finalized its acquisition of VMware. VMware is no longer a company. It's a software division of Broadcom. And while I still love the product and the people that work there and the mission statement that VMware had way back in the day, man, Broadcom could use some better PR, because it seemed like they came out with every negative change all at once. And while they have a goal to hit, and while they have a vision of what they need to do, it just seemed to be negative article after negative article after negative article with very little properly done public relations for what this means for the future. And it's been one thing after another up until actually yesterday on Wednesday. They had a blog post about, whoa, sorry, we're going to maybe make some changes and kind of not screw our customer base. So, yeah, welcome to the party.
Yeah, I think that post just means that Hawk Tan recouped his $42 billion that he spent to acquire
61 billion.
61. Sorry.
Make sure it's correct.
Numbers matter.
Yes.
2, 3, 5, 6. But yeah, so absolutely. I mean, like that's what I take from a lot of this that's happening right now is like, Hawk wants his money back, and at the end of the day, he's going to get his money back. Because when I'm looking at the amount of money that people are having to spend on VMware right now, he's going to make his money back pretty quick, because people are probably freaking out about, how do I get out of this? And then they're like, oh, well, when everybody talks about lock-in, oh, don't do that. Then you have to deal with vendor lock-in. Oh, don't do that. You have to deal with vendor lock-in. Everyone's just woke up and realized, holy crap, we are all locked into one hyperscaler. We want to move somewhere else. Oh, well, that means you have to change, not hyperscaler, it should be hypervisor. Sorry, I used a cloud
Use
term.
your words.
Everyone's like, ew. But the reality is, if you move from a hypervisor to cloud, that's just a different hypervisor. If you move it from that hypervisor to Nutanix, it's a different hypervisor. If you move from vSphere to Azure Stack, that's a different hypervisor, Hyper-V. It's even in there. Move it from there to Proxmox. I mean, I don't know where they can move it outside of VMware without having to reformat all of their stuff.
And is it going to be really worth it in the end, I think, is the more important question.
The funny thing about vendor, sorry to cut you off, Vince. The funny thing about vendor lock-in is I've been using Microsoft since I came out of my womb in 1980. And
you were born with a
I was born with Microsoft in my hand, like before Microsoft was even, Microsoft. It was, still Bill Gates doing his thing with Ballmer back in the day. You're locked into Microsoft. You've been in the Microsoft realm for decades at this point. And there is a certain way to describe vendor lock-in, but to me, it's always been about the apps you can run inside your ecosystem. You can have multiple storage vendors. You can have multiple networking vendors. You can even have multiple VPN vendors for certain departments and certain operating systems versus Linux and Windows and Mac. And you try to put your environment to work the way that your enterprise needs to run. But when you're talking about the big things, your email, your office suites, your billing department, you usually pick one vendor. So when everybody's like vendor lock-in, well, that's dive deep into that a little bit. And then you come out with, well, where are you actually worried about being locked into? And it's big, massive contracts you can't pivot away from. And that needs to be a risk. You're an exchange. That's what you want to do. Sure, you could go to Lotus Notes, but I don't really think that works anymore. Like, is there another massive email provider other than Google or Exchange or Yahoo? I know there's smaller ones, but it's like, pick where you want to put all your eggs in one bucket and kind of go from there. And then we'll be like, well, we're locked into VMware. Well, yeah, because it's been the best hypervisor platform since the mid 2000s. It's in every single data center on the planet, and it's also probably in 80% of all on-premises environments,
At
at least, if not more, and even small ones. One host standalones without vCenter, 3-node vCenter with HA and DRS and a little bit of shared storage, and it just shrunk the data center down to acceptable power levels and acceptable return on investment levels.
I'll say what it really did. It kept people from going to cloud. Full stop.
No, yeah.
When everyone was going, hey, let's move to cloud. It's faster. Some people were saying it's cheaper. It's not cheaper, but some people were saying it was. But that whole like, we're moving to the cloud, and then everybody saw what Bomber did, and it was like they went full Bomber, and the whole like punching the air thing, and like
and the thing is,
weird stuff.
Up until recently, was there even enough bandwidth to get to the cloud? Like now, it's more regular that you have maybe a gig or 5 gig circuits in your headquarters. But it wasn't too long ago where 400 megs up down was big, bad, and beefy. Now we're talking 100 gig up down.
Oh, Richard, you ignorant. There is so much more in your world other than HCX and migrations over an ISP circuit. You can do it over storage. You can do it over backups. You can do it over migrations. In terms of backups, you can do it over application development. There's like migration as a term has always existed as way more than just, taking a vMotion from one location to another or moving data from one point to the other. S3 has been able to just like back it up to a box and then ship it to a location, and then boom, your data is in an S3 bucket. That's always been there for, I don't know, the past 20 years almost. So those things have been around to migrate, air quotes, into the cloud. So to the idea of the network, I mean, sure, I would say maybe that's probably true for the majority of users. We're getting off topic a little bit, but I think going back to like why
it's okay. We haven't seen each other in a while. We can just kind of go all over the place.
Well, I want to go back to the whole like VMware discussion. Like, I want to ask the question to you guys now, when you think about what is actually happening and the competitors that people are actually looking at, was VMware that expensive?
No, VMware was never that expensive, with the exception NSX was really expensive, but NSX was relatively new in VMware's history. But comparatively, the product line from day one to probably up until November 2023, you were getting VMware for a deal. Deal.
So vSphere, was vSphere that expensive?
No, it was not. It really was friendly to do what you want to do with it.
So people are now looking.
I would argue it was negligible.
Ooh, hot topic.
Ooh,
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that, Vinny boy?
Yeah, all right.
The price,
like the price was negligible.
You could almost throw it away.
Like, well, that's what Nathan so and I are meaning. Yeah, so it's not negligible. So no, that's that. Yeah.
We thought you meant the point was negligible. We thought you were saying it could be expensive. Well, I mean, they're definitely, well, right now. So I think people are waking up right now in that, vSphere was always worth this much money. And they're kind of like realizing that being the best on the market and also being, I will say, affordable on the market meant something. And so now when they're moving over to other opportunities and other vendors, they're finding that, those are bundled SKUs. You don't have all of the individuality that you were allowed to do with VMware. Now that VMware is also a bundled SKU. And then you would find out as well that those other areas that you're looking at are also very expensive. I would say somewhat comparable. So I think what Hawk is doing, and I'm not, by no means am I loving anything that's happening, but what Hawk is doing is he's realizing that he bought something that has been undersold in terms of how much money he can make off of it, and decided to beef it up to where it's pretty much parallel. And a bunch of customers are realizing, oh my gosh, this is way more expensive. I want to go somewhere else. Oh no, that's more expensive too. I want to go somewhere else. Oh, even that's more expensive.
Or it's less expensive, but it doesn't have anywhere near the feature set.
Yeah, absolutely, that as well.
Yep.
And I could be wrong. I'm just a guy rambling on a podcast, but those are the things that I'm hearing.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is roughly the same, where people immediately over the last few months on social media have been very vocal about we're abandoning ship and abandoning VMware. And there is merit to those discussions. But where are you going to go? You're going to go to Oracle, OCI, you're going to go to Google and their offering, and you're going to go to Proxmox and Nutanix. Those are the big four. Microsoft does have its Azure templates, fine, and it also has its Azure HCI, which is on premises. Okay, fine, but really it was those big four. And what are you looking at in the comparison bundle? Proxmox is a open source 50-person company that, while it is quite amazing in what it's been able to do up until this point, it's not enterprise ready. And if you choose to make it enterprise on premises in your environment, you best be able to support it yourself. It's going to introduce competition, and hopefully those vendors are going to beef up what they can offer and maybe level the playing field a bit, where VMware has just been running with it for 2 decades at this point. So I'm looking forward to what the competitors are going to bring to the table in the next year, but then what is VMware going to bring to the table in competition with them? I'm hoping it's going to be back to they're all fighting each other, and that's better for the customer when that happens.
So back to a question that Nathan asked. Nathan, are you saying that the current price fluctuation, we'll call it, of VMware's product offering, are you saying that that price fluctuation might be similar to the rush to the cloud that was seen and discussed in the blogosphere? Everyone's got to go to the cloud, and then they realize problems and they go back. Are you thinking that's going to happen with as a result of the VMware price fluctuation?
Are you basically asking if I think a lot of people are going to migrate to the cloud because of this?
No, are they going to migrate away from VMware to something else, realize that it has its pitfalls or shortcomings, and then come back to VMware and accept the price because they saw lacking on the other side?
So I think that's something any customer can do, right? Because it depends on what their requirements are and what they need to make sure that they're able to do. The whole like vMotion, ooh, look at it, it's here, and then ooh, now it's over here. Scenario that they like from vSphere, that the capability of doing that is available in other hypervisor solutions. It's just not the whole like motion, and then it feels like it's moving. It's like it's here, and other vendors it's here, and now it's here, and you can maintain that uptime, maintain that type of migration and things of that nature, but it's a little bit different. But getting to your question, I mean, I think everybody, this is a great opportunity for a lot of people to just see what they really want and find and redefine their requirements for their organization. A hypervisor at a very minimum is not a huge thing, not a huge hurdle to overcome. The requirements for that hypervisor and what's running on top of it are the more specific requirements that need to be defined as they move on, right? So does Azure Stack HCI have the capabilities of doing what they want to do? Does Proxmox, I almost guarantee you it probably doesn't, but hey, look at Proxmox. Why not? Does Nutanix have the capabilities of doing what they want to do? I know a lot of great Nutanix people. I think Nutanix has really come a long way in a short period of time, but it's always been a little bit pricier than VMware, and now it's right there, man. It's right there. And then the other question that a lot of people are probably not asking themselves, but they probably should, is why don't you look at the cloud again? You know, what if we were to take everything and move it into the cloud? You can use AWS Migrate, and it'll take VMware solutions and be able to port them to the cloud in AWS. You can use Azure Migrate to take a VMware solution and port it into Azure. Like those are free services in order to take your stuff, get off of VMware, and then put it into the cloud if they want to use it. So there's a lot of capabilities and opportunities for people to really define what they want to do with the organization, and then create a roadmap of the next 6 months, year, 4 years. And those are 3 different mileposts on the same road.
So I'm going to do the managerial thing and reframe your question, Vince. You said that, hey, are people going to move away from VMware, see the fallings in the product they chose, and then move back? I think it's a different question completely. Back in, 7 years ago, everybody was like, we're going to the cloud. That's the future. That's what we're going to do. Everybody quotes, did that, and then went, holy crap, that's expensive. We did one-to-one. We didn't do our rebuilds or reanalysis or refactoring of our application stack. We didn't do resource utilization properly. We're getting hit with $100,000 bills every single month. Oh my God, what did we do? And then they reverted back. VMware is a little different, is because you already had the product in-house. If you're a large company on the entire VMware stack, you were using automation, monitoring, auditing. Your network might have been involved in it. It was multiple different IT infrastructure departments working together as an entire unit, hosting the IT services for the company, in addition to maybe your web apps teams, if you're a software development house, sending those VMs out to customers and then utilizing customer-facing services on your on-premises cloud. Two totally different business discussions where you're trying to pivot your old stuff up into the cloud. Didn't work, you're coming back. Facility for a very relatively cost-efficient model that now your cost price and cost structure is changing. Do you really want to run to the cloud everybody's already done and maybe rush your business sense and repeat the same thing that you did 7 years ago? So it's a different discussion that your question kicked off. So Nathan had the entire explanation he just went through, but I see it in a completely different fashion. Redo your entire IT department, depending on the size of your company, or do you want to try new solutions and then roll them out slowly versus just running away because your license model changed?
And I didn't even think about the whole replacing your team, because if you switch technologies, they need to be trained, and then you have to hire different people or pay to train them or whatever. I didn't even think about that. Go ahead, Nathan.
You're going to have to do it anyway, right? You're moving to whatever you move through. If you move away from VMware, it's a new hypervisor, it's a new GUI, new set of tools. Everything your team just knew is gone. So
partner ecosystem too.
Let's brass tacks this. If you move off of VMware, that is a cloud migration. Full freaking stop. Those are all the tasks that you have to do a cloud migration to get off of VMware somewhere else. Different tools that you're going to use, but it is a different GUI that you're going to have to use. It is a different hypervisor you're going to use. It is different tool sets. To your point, Richard, different community, different blogs that you're going to have to go in through, different manuals that you're going. It's a cloud migration. The only difference between what Richard's saying and what I'm saying is that what I'm saying is understand how much it's going to cost before you go. What Richard's saying is go and then go, holy crap, what did I do? And then move back, which is even more expensive after you do that first mistake. Now you got to pay for 2 mistakes. Congratulations. But the reality is we're talking about the same thing. We're just talking about different targets. And I think all of us are kind of, as engineers, as people that have been in the ecosystem, we've seen this happen. Well, not at this scale, but we've seen something like this happen before. And what do? We wait.
I'm curious to that. Heard a few people mention there's always change in IT, but has there been this level of change all at once in an immediate one business impact? Dell bought EMC, which also bought VMware, but the change wasn't immediate. Microsoft came out with Windows 95, NT 98. We migrated those systems. Oh, Active Directory, that's brand new in 2000-ish. Let's go and get certified in Active Directory and spin up domains. What was the last migration in IT technology of this size that happened immediately? Like, holy crap, our entire stack just changed. Change is always prevalent. But what's the biggest one? I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I would say our entire stack has not changed. There are a lot of customers out there that are not holistically into VMware and the VMware tools, and so they're really just changing a hypervisor. So,
okay, that's fair.
I mean, there are definitely those bought-in customers that are like full VCF, and they're like, "Holy crap, what do we do now? Yep. We don't know anything outside of VMware." But yeah, I'm thinking in my head in terms of like, and it's difficult because this is big, right? This is not Windows Vista, kind of tongue in cheek. Oh my gosh, what do we do with this? Because that wasn't a big bomb just sitting on your doorstep waiting to explode. That was a big bomb sitting on other people's doorstep that you got to point at them and be like, ha ha, suckers. But now we're all sitting here with a bomb on our doorstep, and that bomb is our license renewal, going, crap, what do I do now? And there's so many different changes, so many different adjustments to prices, to licenses. I found out that like VMware's disaster recovery solution for VMC now includes like 3 different products. Like the ransomware that was an individual SKU is now built in. VMware site recovery is now built in. Like, so if you're buying that license,
security stack isn't there anymore with Carbon Black. The entire EUC group is gone.
We haven't even touched on that.
Yeah, we haven't even got to that yet. But yeah, there's just so many changes. If you're all the way into VMware, I'm kind of middle-aged IT, and I have friends that are youngins, and I have friends that are the elderly graybeards that you go and pray to about how to, open your Unix terminal on an AS400 and go, what do I do now, boss? Like, I have a peer group that's age ranged, and I'm just wondering, like, what's the last time something this big of a change has happened? Because change is prevalent in our industry. It happens every single day, every single month, every single year. What's been the last big one? And I can't think of one.
Yeah. So I was thinking about Novell for a quick second, but then I kind of quickly realized that wasn't a bomb on your desk. Again, that was just this is something that's easier to use, and I don't have to go through like a myriad amount of books in order to understand it. And I just moved.
Yep. And then that just happened with attrition. Like it got old and there it went away. I was uninstalling Novell in my first job, but I have friends that they were installing it. So it's all relative.
So one thing that I was happy to see recently, VMware related, is I saw the upgrade path blog post for anybody who's currently running. Pick your bundle of VMware products and needs to move to the new SKU, whether it's Cloud Foundation or vSphere Foundation, VVF or VCF. Those are your choices. And I like that they have a blog post that says, if you're using this bundle A, here's your upgrade path. If you're using bundle B, take this other path to get you from where you are to the full bundle. I didn't dive into how deep the deployment guide or that upgrade guide is, but I like to see that the path has already been outlined, so people don't have to try to figure it out. I don't know if y'all saw any of that.
I did. I thought that was a nice touch, but it can we just talk about how difficult it is to see the good things that are happening because it's so overwhelmingly covered by the bad things?
Yes, please.
Because you just mentioned about something that they do that's good, and in the back of my head, I'm like, well, of course they're going to do that because they want you to sign their insane renewals. Oh, you want all these fun little tools that you always wanted to play around with? Oh, just go through this path and it'll be perfect. And then you're stuck.
So one thing that I did was bad. I liked everything Vince said, except for the fact that DRS wasn't one of the lower bundle tiers. And that means you can't drop your host into maintenance mode without some manual intervention, which means you can't do server maintenance on it. So if you're on the lower tier, they're forcing you to go to VCF instead of staying on VVF. And that's a business decision on Broadcom's part. And the team that had designed that upgrade path and that licensing path and that feature stack, it may change as time goes on, but I definitely noticed that was a business decision to try to kick you up to the higher tiers. And we're not the business executives. We have to take what we're offered, and DRS is a huge feature.
I mean, it is. So do we jump on the big old monster that is the fact that we don't have an EUC? Like Horizon is gone?
Yeah. So what?
Force them out for... Oh, come on.
Didn't hurt me.
Ouch.
Oh, I know.
They're like, you want a VDI? Here's a laptop. That's not virtual. Play with it. Tell me if you like it or not.
It's a VDI, very dense instrument now.
Don't get me wrong. I know some people in our community who were probably very unhappy with the way that particular business unit was just said goodbye to. I wonder what other items are going to just disappear under the Broadcom transition. I can give you one that I hope just disappears. Kubernetes, all of that tool set Just
Really?
just silently kill it off. You don't have to be a
No. Okay, that's you can't silently do that. You got to expunge and expand upon whatever word I'm looking for in that statement. What are you? What's your beef?
I truly do hope that Broadcom looks at the Tanzu Kubernetes container portion of the features that are in the stack and just decides, you know what, there really isn't as big a need for this as there people thought there was. Let's just stop developing it. Let them use it as it is, but let's just stop developing it, and we'll phase it out in future releases. I hope it happens, but
No way in
I'm
hell.
sure I'm going to anger some
No.
people.
No way. in hell.
Now, I'm curious where that viewpoint comes from. So, professional question. I know Nathan is all cloud all the time, and he's more developer than anybody else. I mean, look at his shirt. Me, I can write a script from Stack Overflow, and I can, use Copilot to describe what I want, and I can read what loops do. And I've worked for a software development house, and I know Nathan has. Have you worked for a software development house, Vince? There's
No.
why you don't. There's the reason right there. That's where your viewpoint comes from. So if you aren't in that world, I would agree with you. You're looking at Tanzu going, what the hell is this thing? Why am I doing all this crap? What how do I even spell K8? Understandable. But from our point of view, we've been in the developer side of the house and, one skill set or another. And it was all the thing all the time since, it was released. And then when you started to see all of these different microservices come out, and AWS had been doing it for years, and Netflix kind of was the purveyor of it publicly with their blog posts from the technical side of things 15 years ago. It's big in the development world right now. Like, it's the thing. That's why AWS right now is one of the largest conferences.
I'm not saying it has to disappear off the planet.
But
just
no,
treat
but you're
it like the
taking
EUC group and just kind of kick it off to the side.
But VMware
No
needed
way
at the
in hell.
time a different line of business, and they decided to market to developers because the developers were the ones, in our viewpoints, consuming the VMs, and we were the ones who were hosting the VMs, sending it out to customers. So why not shrink the stack that we had down to microservices, which would be containers? And there's a very large discussion here that Nathan could probably go into much more detail than I can. But
And
I
before
wanted
he
to know
does-
where you got there, and that's your viewpoint. You haven't worked for a development house, so
And
go,
before
Nathan.
he
Go,
does,
go. Come on, wind him up.
Nathan
Fish
hates
him.
PowerShell. I hate Kubernetes. I'll take the heat for the Kubernetes hate among the group.
I'm just the middleman here.
Okay, red shirt.
So the reason why Tanzu's never going to go away. On-prem Kubernetes is always going to be a thing, and it's blowing up in 2024 because of AI. Full stop. Most AI out-of-the-box consumption solutions are built on Kubernetes, and if you need to be able to build, like I think NVIDIA Grid was built in Kubernetes, and so if you want to build NVIDIA Grid connected to a hardline GPU, then you're going to need to build that box and then run a Kubernetes solution on that box, which is why the NVIDIA and VMware partnership was such a big deal. So yeah, Tanzu going away? No, they invested a ton of stuff in order to allow that Tanzu would work for machine learning and artificial intelligence. And so, I'm sorry, am I telling you too many real things, Vince? Is it hurting you?
No, I was all ears. I'm just like, oh yeah. Come on, keep talking. Go.
Yeah, I mean, and PowerShell's not a programmer's language, but at the same time, when we also get into like Kubernetes, there's something. Kubernetes is growing, right, and it's growing at a very interesting areas, right. So it's basically applications at the edge is kind of the way that I view it, but the edge doesn't necessarily mean like away from your data center. It means inside of your data, away from your compute. So SmartNICs, right? What's running on the SmartNICs? What's running on all these other things? Well, they're very small utilized solution sets that can be able to run basic compute processing and input output, right? So yes, there's hardware that does it. Yes, there's firmware that does it. But also, a lot of people are actually trying to see, okay, well, how do I put a little container on the edge in order to run that? That container also runs in Kubernetes. How do developers build those containers? Well, to be real, most of them just build it on their laptops or pull it down from their repositories and run it into a test environment that they run in GitHub, GitLab, Atlassian, wherever, but the reality is that they just want to be able to build it and then deploy it where it wants to go. Long story short, there's so many different utilizations right now for containerizations, and Kubernetes is where a lot of people want to build that containerization and then connect it to multiple different places. Sorry, the reality hurts.
And Tanzu was brought onto the VMware platform and created specifically so you could use the VMware stack you already had to do the things Nathan just mentioned, either on premises in your VMware environment or up at the time in VMware's cloud environment, which was AWS 1 AWS, VMW 1 AWS. Hey, acronyms. Yeah, they're fun. But yes, Tanzu was brought onto the VMware stack specifically so that you could take advantage of K8s in your own environment, and it has simply grown from there.
Boo.
What, you said you're a Red Hat guy? You use OpenShift on the daily, Vinny? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. I said I don't want to deal with it. That's what I don't.
Well, you know why you don't want to deal with it? That crap breaks every like 5 days.
Not my problem.
I mean, that's the unfortunate reality that a lot of people are in, is that, if they are running Tanzu. Look, I love Tanzu. I think it's awesome, but you got to care and feed it like a baby. And I do mean like a baby, or else it'll have a fit like a baby, and it'll just absolutely crap on everything.
Are you speaking from experience, sir?
Maybe. All I got to say is I love living in cloud where I don't have to worry about when things break. I just build things and then delete things.
And then me to provide that foundation for you, I have found that Tanzu's marketing is quite lacking for my side of things. For me to build the environment to give to Nathan, for him to consume and build on, there seems to be a market towards Nathan, but not towards the VI infrastructure guy who's been doing this for 15, 20 years, where sure, I can build it, but there's no marketing from VMware that tells me how to do that. I really need to do it the old school way by reading the entire 1,000-page manual and hoping I don't get something wrong for my specific workflow. And it's difficult, and it's difficult to understand the market platform. It's difficult to understand how I should build it out. And is it even a need for where I currently am at my role? Like, does my development team need that, or have they done something else already because the marketing boat was missed? Just my opinion. I love what Tanzu's potential is. I just wish it was a little easier to consume from my side versus Nathan's side.
Yeah, I think that's where ARIA, CodeStream, and all those other solutions kind of came in and gave you an automated way in order to build, test, development, and then VI admins were able to actually provision those things. Because VMware was like, we could give you a button, but why don't we just let you figure it out yourself with a bunch of open source solutions and APIs? Woohoo.
Yeah.
Go for it, buddy. But, the other thing why Tanzu's never going away. ARIA went away. It is now Tanzu CodeStream and Tanzu automation. Tanzu guardrails.
You can change the names all you want. It doesn't change my opinion.
Grumpy old man, you.
Tough customer here.
I will take that mantle, Nathan. I will gladly accept the grumpy old man mantle.
So here's the fun question. Is it cheaper to just buy laptops instead of VDI at this point?
Depending on what the laptop needs to be able to do, possibly.
Depending on use case.
If, for example, if you're a person that lives in Microsoft Office and meetings all day long, you don't need a powerful laptop. So, yeah, potentially if you've got a whole bunch of those, I would call them... I won't piss anyone else off tonight. I've already done that enough.
What do you think, Richard?
I have opinions I can't divulge. Sorry.
This is what happens when you start moving up.
This is great podcast discussion, guys. This is fantastic.
There are places in the world that don't have internet, and VDI is clearly not the solution for those places. And that's really all I can say.
What does that mean?
It means that there are places in the world where technology is being used that does not have an internet connection.
They do not have sufficient connectivity to be able to access.
And a VDI won't work. Period. Like, full stop. Like,
dude, I just want, look, we're in an election year, and if there is a debate between the two current head runners, I just want one of them to be like, someone ask them a question, to be like, well, I can't really answer that question, but there's a lot of water out there, and
yeah,
a house
there
doesn't
is.
belong in the water. There's a lot of land out there, and boat don't belong on the land.
Richard, I want to know what happens when you give Nathan 4 or 5 beers on a Saturday afternoon in the backyard where nobody's recording. I want to know what those conversations
I'm stone sober, man. I haven't had a single drink.
There are places where technology exists that the internet doesn't, and you can't run a VDI in those places.
Or there's another possible explanation as to why one might want to do this.
Now, keep in mind, Starlink does exist now, so there is a footnote on my statement, but my point still stands.
Yeah, don't ask me any questions about that, Richard.
As
Securing
you see
things.
The dish pivot into view and then pivot away from view.
The securing of things. Richard, I think you have some experience or recent experience. We had a conversation or something. Securing things is hard. Best practices are hard. If you give someone a computer and it's a lonely island, well, if it gets a disease on it, well, it's off on its own island. So just leave it there. Thoughts on
you shoot it. Sorry, you're dead now.
What happens if you need to apply 3 best practices that conflict because your stack requires one thing for application, one thing for database, and one thing for storage?
You might work in government or healthcare.
Nathan doesn't have any clue what we're talking about.
You run Nessa scans and then hope for the best.
The free one, right? Not the supported one?
No comment.
Well, this has turned into a real you-know-what show.
Who hurt you, Vince? Tell me your stories.
All right. I'll give you one. If you're going to build a new environment and you're going to do it right, to me, that means
keep it off and nobody can access it. Super secure.
Well, maybe. But that to me would mean that every piece of the puzzle needs to be thought out and done right. It's not you do 80% of it perfect and then just forget the last 20%, that you don't get credit for that. It needs to all be uniform. It needs to all be built the same so that it's repeatable, so that if something happens, you just pull out the broken piece, put a new one in, so on and so forth. Am I talking crazy talk, or does this all sound reasonable?
I work in the cloud, so it sounds crazy to me. I just build it, and if I built it wrong, I delete it and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just say my advice to people is when you pick a convention, stick to the convention. Start to finish. Don't change convention 3 times on the way. Just don't do that. It'll make your life a lot simpler. And I have to be vague here, but pro tip.
This episode of Deep Thoughts has been brought to you by Snickers. Snickers, hungry?
Not sponsored. Not copyrighted.
Oh, sorry.
And we don't need lawyers, Nathan.
Oh, cut that out. Y'all are muting the song that behind me, right? Don't worry about that.
We're not hearing it. At least I'm not hearing it.
Good.
Well, we've been rambling for almost an hour. I guess we just need to get back into our rhythm and do this more regularly. Thoughts? No?
I mean, yes.
Am I alone here?
Yeah.
I think we need to realize that IT continues past Broadcom. Like all of us are VMware folks. We know VMware. Vince is straight up wearing a VMUG shirt for a VMUG leader, and Richard's wearing a vExpert shirt
and touching himself in a odd way.
We started with nipples. We'll end with nipples.
That's gonna be a soundbite.
Damn it!
Now I'm sad I was talking over it.
That's what you get separate audio tracks for.
Yeah. So I mean, like, time marches on. We're all still going to be working in IT. We're all still going to be doing something different, right? When 10 years from now, when Microsoft has assimilated all of us, then we'll all be like talking about the good old days when we didn't have to worry about Windows being everywhere. And not as we put in our .asp headsets and virtually speak to virtual people.
So I'll ask a useless question that, is completely out of left field. Where do you think you'll be in IT in 3 years? Because that'll have the chance where Broadcom is settled into the VMware acquisition. We have 3 more years of AWS and Oracle, OCI, and Google Cloud and Azure Stack. Where do you think your role will be in 3 years?
I think I'll still be doing basically what I'm doing. Like I love trying to figure out. I love doing cloud things and figuring out how to help people do what they want to do in the cloud. Everybody wants to poke on the cloud and say it's expensive. Guess what? It is expensive. It's still growing at 20% last year. That's post-COVID numbers, by the way. So you want to say it's too expensive? Fine. People are still using it. It's still growing. And you know why? Because it's easy. You know why? Because you build it and you build it wrong, delete it and rebuild it. You know why? Because people can get easy access to do things that are hard. Wide area web application firewalls are hard. You want to put DDoS protection on your local environment? That's hard. That's a freaking checkbox in the cloud. I'll always use that as an example. You want to figure out how to get your application in your cordoned off into your, VPC. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Oh, well, we want to make sure that our data doesn't go out of the state or out of the nation. That's also very simple. There are compliance standards that AWS has to adhere to. Oh, well, we're worried about the security of the cloud. The cloud's more secure than your data center. I can guarantee you that. Yeah. The cloud is different now than it was 5 years ago. But if you want to constantly win the argument that, yeah, it's too expensive. Sure, it's more expensive than a couple of pieces of hardware. But it'll definitely get you where you want to go faster than a couple of pieces of hardware.
Buy the right tool for the job, in other words.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, anything before we wrap this up?
Where are you going to be in 3 years?
Yeah,
Vince?
I was going to say, you're dodging the last question there. Answer my question, man.
If you're not dead in the gutter somewhere next to me, what are you going to be doing?
I have some goals when it comes to career-wise, and it's not centered around a technology. I'll put it that way. I'm not married to a particular area of IT. I'm not locked into a particular brand. While yes, my knowledge is very much wrapped up around a particular brand of products, that knowledge, I believe, is usable in lots of other ways. Easy example. We're sitting here recording a podcast. Audio production, not part of my professional career responsibilities, but I've had to learn things here and there along the way to do this with you guys. Will that knowledge become helpful at some point in the future? Sure. Let's say I get asked to help someone build out their VMware stack inside of a music production business. Well, I've actually got some experience. I know what the little sliders do. Okay, I'm not completely foreign to it. So I don't know where I'll be in 3 years, but I can tell you that I will still continue to use all of the knowledge that I'm learning today and sharing with others today in the future in some way or another.
I'm at a bit of a crossroads for my next 3 years. I've noticed that I'm retooling a lot of my skill sets because I've been so deep down the rabbit hole of VMware and storage and data center and infrastructure and ops for my last decade plus, that now I have a lot of different responsibilities that are arranged in such a way that all of the stuff that I learned in the last decade kind of was the easy part. The hard part is now securing it, doing risk analysis on it, and being in that role that I wasn't when I stood up the other environments I'm referring to or managed them. So it's either I'm going down that path or I'm going to be going down the people path. I'm looking to get out of the button pushing and IT responsibility almost altogether. I would love to be able to manage people, to direct a department, to be able to utilize the knowledge I have gained in my IT career to benefit where I want to go with a team. And that includes the bottom tier of help desk all the way up to talking to the CFO to figure out the budgetary numbers for the next 2 to 3 years for a company's organizational stack. So I'm at a crossroads, and now you can play us out.
I think you just introduced us to a new series of episodes on IT Reality in the future. Conversations with our future career selves.
This has been another great episode of IT Reality.
We are everywhere, so pick your podcast app. You can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter.